Hi everyone! Today I will present Assessment Task 2, Macroeconomic Analysis and Macroeconomic Data Diagnostics. This presentation includes two parts. Part A focuses on avian influenza and egg prices in Australia, and Part B focuses on Singapore GDP growth and unemployment rate. In my part, I will focus on Part A and answer one main question: why the egg prices increased after 2024 avian influenza outbreak. In 2024, avian influenza outbreak affected several laying hen farms in Australia. When infected or at-risk chicken were killed, the number of laying hens decreased. In simple terms, fewer hens means fewer eggs. The evidence shows this clearly. Around 70% of egg production capacity was lost, and about 1.67 million laying hens were killed. Many areas experienced egg shortages, and some supermarkets introduced purchase restrictions. By June 2025, egg prices had increased by 19.1%. So the key point is that egg price increases mainly because of a supply-side shock, not because consumers suddenly want more eggs. This report will use three microeconomics concepts and models. The supply and demand model explains why reduced supply leads to higher prices and lower quantity. Shortage occurs when quantity demanded is greater than quantity supplied before the market reaches to the new equilibrium. Price elasticity explains why consumers and producers do not respond quickly to price changes in the short term. The supply and demand model help explain why egg prices increased in Australia after 2024 avian influenza outbreak. The main reason is a decrease in supply. Avian influenza reduced farms' ability to produce and supply eggs, so the supply curve shifted left from S1 to S2. In contrast, demand remained relatively stable because eggs are still a common part of daily household consumption. As a result, the market moved from the original equilibrium E1 to a new equilibrium E2, leading to a higher price from P1 to P2 and a lower quantity from Q1 to Q2. This is consistent with the 19.1 annual rise in egg prices reported by ABS in 2025. In simple terms, when supply falls but demand remains relatively steady, prices rise because of the limited number of eggs must be allocated among consumers. This model can also explain egg shortages and purchase restriction after avian influenza. In the real market, prices and inventory do not adjust to a new equilibrium immediately. So even when supply decreases, the price may still at the original level or rise slowly. At this price, consumers still want to buy eggs for daily needs, but supermarkets and suppliers have fewer eggs available. This creates a shortage because the quantity demand is greater than the quantity supplied. Therefore, the shortage is only a short-term imbalance before the market fully moves from the original equilibrium to the new equilibrium. This is why some supermarkets may introduce purchase limits, such as restricting the number of eggs each customer can buy. In this part, I will explain the rise in egg prices using price elasticity. First, the demand for eggs is relatively inelastic in the short term. This means that when egg prices increase, consumers do not reduce their purchase significantly. Although there are substitutes such as tofu or dairy products, they are not exactly the same in taste, price, and cooking use. Eggs are commonly used for breakfast, cooking, and baking, so many consumers still buy them even when price rise. Secondly, the supply of eggs is also relatively inelastic in the short term. When avian influenza reduces egg supply, farms cannot quickly increase production. This is because egg production depends on laying hens and biological production cycles. A farm cannot immediately increase the number of hens or make new hens produce eggs straight away. Also, affected farms need time to change cleaning, disinfection, and biosecurity checks before reopening. Therefore, supply remains tight for some time. Overall, because demand does not fall quickly and supply cannot recover quickly, avian influenza caused a sharper increase in egg prices rather than just a small price change. In conclusion, the 2024 avian influenza outbreak shows that egg prices depend not only on consumer demand, but also on supply chain stability. There are three key findings. First, the price increase was mainly caused by a supply-side shock. Second, shortages occurred before the market reached to the new equilibriums. Third, inelastic demand and supply made the price increase stronger and recovery slower. This matters for supermarkets, consumers, and government policy because it shows the importance of stable supply sources, consumer understanding, and strong biosecurity management. That's all. Thank you.
Now, I will move to Part B, which is the macroeconomic data diagnostics. For the first indicator, I choose Singapore's GDP growth rate. GDP growth shows whether the economy is growing or falling. From 2014 to 2018, GDP growth stayed around 3% to 4.5%. This shows steady growth. For businesses, this means more confidence to produce and invest. In 2019, growth fell to 1.3%. This shows that the economy was already slowing before COVID. One reason was weaker global demand, and another reason was trade uncertainty such as the US-China trade war. The biggest change was in 2020. GDP growth fell to minus 3.8%. This means the economy contracted due to COVID. People spent less and restrictions made it harder for businesses to operate. So firms were more likely to cut output or delay expansion. Then, in 2021, GDP rebounded strongly to 9.8%. As Singapore started to reopen, businesses could operate again. But we should read this number carefully, because 2020 was a very weak year. The 2021 rebound looked extra large. After that, growth became uneven. It slowed in 2022 and 2023, then improved in 2024, supported by sectors such as manufacturing, finance, and wholesale trade. Overall, Singapore's economy was resilient, but it still depended heavily on external demand and key sectors. Next, let's look at the second indicator, the unemployment rate. It shows the proportion of people who want to work but do not have a job. Before COVID, unemployment was low and stable, staying between 1.9% and 2.2% from 2014 to 2019. This means most people who wanted a job were able to find one. In 2020, unemployment rose to its highest point, 3%. The main reason was the COVID shock. Economic activity became weaker. Many businesses sold less and could not run normally, so they needed fewer workers. This is why unemployment went up, and this is cyclical unemployment, which happens when the economy slows down. In 2021, unemployment fell to 2.7%. This shows the labor market was starting to recover. As restrictions eased, businesses could slowly reopen. Vaccination and support measures also helped firms keep workers. However, some sectors were still affected by travel rules and safety measures. Because of this, firms were still careful about hiring again. By 2022, unemployment fell further to 2.1%. This shows a stronger recovery. More labor market indicators had returned close to pre-COVID levels. In 2023 and 2024, unemployment stayed at 2%. This suggests that cyclical unemployment had mostly eased. Overall, the labor market had moved from shock to recovery, and then to a more stable low unemployment stage. This is the end of our report presentation. Thank you for listening.